This system focuses on the front line. Remember that the body is a system, and it's connected from one end to the other. We have a line that starts at the top of the toes, works its way all the way up, all the way into the fingers if we wanted to. So let's become aware of that connection. Let's begin with the spread leg child's pose, knees wide apart, toes fairly close together. Try to sit back comfortably onto the back of the heels without aggravating the knees. And make your way forward, slowly, either onto the elbows, resting forehead on your fists as a platform, or maybe on a block, or forehead all the way down to the mat, hands extended out. Allow the body to rest here. The key concept in the Yin practice is letting go. So just give up control to the body. Allow it to relax into the mat. And just use time and gravity and your exhale to bring you closer to the floor. So as you begin to let go of your body, let go of any mental tensions that are hanging out in your mind. Any ideas or concepts that you've been fixated on. Any thoughts that you just haven't been able to let go of. Now's the time to let them go. Let them go so that you can bring your attention inwards and pay attention to what's going on inside. Start to deepen the breath now. Inhaling and exhaling through the nostrils. Long, deep inhalations, allowing the belly, rib cage, chest to expand out. And just relax and sink down with the exhale. And let go. So a nice deep inhale to stretch and expand the body from the inside. And just a relaxed exhale, allowing it to sink and release into the mat. And just pay attention to whatever's going on inside, without any expectations as to where you should be feeling anything, without any labeling of the sensations, whether they label them as tension or good or bad, just sensations. Just pay attention to whatever's happening. And accept whatever's happening. Because if you find yourself struggling or tightening up or resisting whatever it is that's going on, recognize that you're the only person on this mat. And that means you're struggling and tightening up against yourself. So just relax into whatever's happening, however subtle or intense it is. Accept whatever's happening and let it go. And whenever you realize that you've been distracted again with other thoughts, and you're somewhere else, off the mat, in another time or place, just acknowledge whatever it is that has you distracted, let it go, and bring yourself right back here onto the mat and experience whatever's happening right here, right now. Train the mind to stay here, to stay present, or in the moment, as they like to say. Deep expanding breaths to stretch it out. Relaxed exhales, allowing you to sink into the mat. Let's take 5 more deep breaths in the spread leg child's pose. Belly, rib cage, chest expanding. And then slowly start to walk the hands in, making your way out of the child's pose at your own pace. Knees in together, eventually make your way into the downward dog, and you may need to make some noises as you come out of here. It always helps. Whatever you need to do, wake it up, shake it up a little bit. Walk the heels out, move the hips from side to side. It's your body, explore it with this down dog. Such a great pose. Infinite amount of positions you can come into. Spend some time to get to know yourself a little bit better. Walking the heels out, maybe coming into a little bit of an up dog or down into a cat stretch, or rolling the shoulders back and forth to loosen them up a little bit. Especially if you've been sitting in a static position for a while. Getting up and shaking it loose and getting the juices flowing a little bit. Take a few more moments to explore whatever's happening. Stay aware of the breath. Keep the face soft. And then whenever you're ready, come down onto the knees and right down onto the belly. And we're going to come into a little bit of a yang pose right now. The flying bird. Good stabilizing pose. So sometimes we mix yang poses in with the yin sequences. So legs straight back, hands behind you. Whenever you're ready, inhale, lift the heart up, reach the hands back, crown of the head reaching out, so keep the back of the neck long. Legs are reaching out. Option to keep the feet on the mat if you need to. Breathing into the muscles that are working back there. Activating the entire back line. As much as you can lift without compromising breath, without having to squeeze the face. Forehead relaxed, jaw relaxed, breath is unrestricted. As if somebody's helping you, grabbing your wrist and lengthening the arms, as if somebody's grabbing your shins and lengthening the legs. Crown of the head still reaching out. We got 3 more breaths here. Lifting a little bit higher with every breath. 1 more inhale with a big smile. Exhale, slowly sink down. Right ear to the mat, hands alongside you. Slide the big toes closer together. Let the heels fall away from each other to create some space in the lower back. And now your body is resting, but your mind is still here, so bring your attention inwards. Feel how the lower back lifts up and down with the breath. Let it sink down with that exhale. Let it rest. So we sometimes add some stabilizing poses throughout the yin sequences. You can mix it up, especially once you get further into the practice, you'll be able to know what your body needs and you'll be able to give it what it needs that day. These sequences are just a guideline. They're just suggestions to help you out when you start out. We're going to be coming into the Sphinx pose in a little bit, which is a nice little back bend, a passive back bend in a sense. So we're going to slowly bring our hands forward, elbows directly underneath the shoulders. So you can use palm to elbow as a little measuring device, and then bring the hands out in front, palms flat, as if your toes are stuck to the mat. Elbows are going to draw back a little bit as you inhale, lift the heart right through the gate of the shoulders, tailbone tucking down, crown of the head reaching straight up, as if you're trying to drag the toes along with you, but they're stuck to the mat, so the front line is getting a length. If at any point you find that this angle is too high for your lower back, you can always take the elbows out a little bit further in front so the angle is a little bit lower, but the intention is still to lift up. So you want to keep the lower back safe. If you find there's too much sensation in the lower back, you want to back off a little bit. There's no rush. Now you have the option as well, if you want to take it higher, if you know your back bends and you know you're comfortable coming up to a taller position, you can come into the seal pose from here. So you open up the legs wide, let the heels roll out slightly from each other, and then angle the hands outwards as well. And then quads engaged slightly, glutes soft, push into the palms, lift the heart up, tailbone sinking down. And then arms straight, shoulders back. So we don't want to lock the arms, we don't want to bend them, but when we have bone on top of bone, we get a nice structure to help hold the pose. And then if we feel comfortable at any time, we can walk the hands in closer to come up taller, tailbone sinking, pubic bone lifting, collarbones exposed. Deep, long breaths. Use that inhale to help lift the heart up. This is a nice long back bend. Allows you to stay in a back bend and breathing comfortably and evenly. You can always come back down onto the elbows if it's too much on the hands. And you can always come out ahead of time if you need to. We got 5 more deep breaths to go. Deep breaths. Let the heart lift up a little higher with every one. One more deep inhale, lifting the heart up. And then using the hands as you exhale, slowly start to make your way back down, effort of the arms. Eventually legs back in together, left ear to the mat. Hands alongside you or resting underneath the ears. Big toes again together, heels fall. Resting here, breathing into the lower back, feel it come up and down with the breath. And sometimes when we come out of a yin pose, we expect to feel some tenderness or vulnerability in the area that we were focused on, which is not uncommon. But if that vulnerability lasts longer than 5 or so minutes, then you want to back off in the pose a little bit next time. Just pay attention to what's going on back there as you get out of the pose. Deep breaths. Relax. Relaxing into the mat here for a few more breaths. And with that little back bend, we prepared our lower back for the next pose coming, the dragon pose, to hit the hip flexors, which is also a back bend. So hands underneath the shoulders, pick yourself up into table position slowly. Folding the left side of the mat so that you can cushion your knee. Remember to keep the knee safe, so if you need something thicker underneath, a cushion or folding the mat once again. Right foot between your hands for a lunge, over to the right side of the mat a little bit. The idea here, you can start off on your hands or fingertips. Allow the right sits bone to sink down to the right heel. So you don't want to hold the hips up, you want gravity to sink it down on its own. You're not pushing, you're not resisting, you're just letting go. Shoulders back, heart lifted. Option to stay here or hands up onto the thigh. Not to support your body weight, just for balance. So pubic bone lifting, abdominals lifting, heart lifting. hips sinking with the exhale. If balance is an issue, you can always use a prop underneath the left hand to help support the pose. Blocks are always a good prop to help support the pose, gives you a little more stability. Deep inhales, heart lifting, hips sinking down. And the other option is to use two blocks, maybe a little bit further back if your back bends are a little more experienced. Heart lifting, hips still sinking down. We sometimes don't realize that we're resisting or holding the pose up. And so the idea is to stay inwards here, and every inhale, lengthen. And with every exhale, just try to relax the lower half of the body here. See if you can sink down a little more. The sensations that you may experience, some people may label them as tensions or uncomfortable or discomfort, or some people may even label them as pain. Can you believe it? The idea here is, again, to just spend enough time with whatever it is you're feeling, consciously paying attention to it so that you can see it for what it really is. We often experience things through our senses, which are often filtered from our conditioning. So we got 3 more breaths here. Deep inhalations, heart lifting still. One more inhale, lift the heart up nice and proud. Exhale, slowly bring the hands back down to the mat. Curl the back toes under, maybe unfold the mat first. And just take the leg back into downward dog. Any noises you need to make here, it's going to feel good. That's your connective tissue settling back in. Walk it out. Enjoy the benefits. Taking a few more movements before we come into the other side. And remember that each side of your body holds its tensions differently, so you may not be in the same place on each side. So whenever you're ready, coming back down onto the mat, folding the right side to cushion the right knee. Left foot between the hands this time, a little over to the left side of the mat. You can stay down on the hands for a little while if you need to. Left sits bone sinking to left heel, or whenever you're ready, you can make your way up to the taller position. Sometimes staying down a little bit longer, letting the legs sink down first, then coming up to the taller position. Or gradually making your way up as the pose unravels. Tailbone sinking, pubic bone lifting, abdominals lifting, and you notice when you lift those abdominals up, the hip flexors start to speak a little bit louder. Now, this is basically communication. You're just listening to whatever is going on over there, whatever they have to say to you. And it may sometimes sound like your hip flexors are angry with you, but they're not angry. They're just excited that you're paying attention to them right now. And they have a lot to say. So just listen. Without talking back, without labeling, without judging. Just accepting, using the breath to relax into it, and just let it go. Use that inhale. The inhale is an uplifting breath that helps lengthen that front line. And right now with this pose, you're hitting from the top of the toes all the way up to the body into the chest. You could extend that line up if you wanted to by extending the hand all the way up, shoulder, the right hand all the way up, shoulder down, and connecting from the right hip flexor all the way up into the fingers. If it's too much, you can always bring the hand back down. Try to let the lower half of the body sink down here. We got 5 more deep breaths to go. Two more. Inhale, lift up, proud chest. Exhale, hands back down to the mat. Unfolding the mat slowly, curling the back toes under, lifting right back up into the down dog. Oh. I'll help you out here. I'll make some noises with you. Get you started. I always like to smile when I'm coming out of those poses. That way I associate good times with those sensations. Take a few more moments. And then just come down and rest for a little bit and let those connective tissues settle down. Rest on your belly. One ear to the mat, hands alongside you. Let go. Take a rest. Let it all settle down. So we're going to be coming out of our rest. So hands underneath the shoulders. Pick yourself up into table position. We're going to be coming into the half hero pose. So left foot out in front for a lunge position. Take your right thumb behind the right knee and draw the skin back so you make a little more space. And sit as low as you can to the inside edge of your heel. So you're not sitting on the heel, you're to the side of it, toes are pointing directly back behind you. Now if you can, lie back down. Option to have props to sit on. The idea is to sit as low to the mat as you can without aggravating the knees. Sometimes you need a prop system set up, like Louise over here will be coming into. Chair is a really good prop. Set up with a bolster or sofa cushion of some sort so that you can rest back into the pose without aggravating the knee or lower back. So you should be feeling it somewhere around the quadricep or maybe even the hip flexor. Options if you would like to take it a little bit deeper. Hug the knee all the way in towards your chest with your hands. And the more you move around with the knee here, the more you play around with this side, you can move it to the side or hug it in closer, the different angles you'll hit in the quadricep. Hugging the knee in with your hands isn't accessible. Placing a block underneath the foot to help support the pose for a little while, and then maybe taking it to the taller end of the block so that you don't have to use arm effort to help hold the knee in. So we'll rest in the pose. Try to relax as much as you can. Deep breaths into the sensations. And use that exhale to let them go. If you're feeling what people label as discomfort in the pose, then I'm doing my job here. I don't want you to be comfortable here. I want you to find the discomfort and learn to be comfortable with it. Our ego likes comfort and it likes habit. The more we stay in our comfort zone and the more we stay in our habits, the more we shrink as a person. But the more we come out of our comfort zone and challenge our ego, the more we grow. It's a universal law. You're either growing or shrinking, moving one way or the other. Every time you stay in that comfort zone, in that little circle, it's a great way to shrink. Deep breaths, accepting whatever's happening here. Whenever you realize your attention has gone elsewhere, just bring yourself right back into whatever it is you're feeling. We don't want to avoid the sensations. Avoiding them is what put them there in the first place. We only got 5 more breaths here to go. Deep, long breaths. Slowly extending the left leg back out, using the elbows and hands to come up to a seated position. Come up to seated and slowly extend the foot out of the pose. Take a little breather here on your seat, just legs extended out. Try not to engage the quadricep here. You may be feeling some tenderness in the knee joint, in the quad, some vulnerability. Just be okay with that. Let it settle down on its own. We always give it a little bit of a break between sides before we rush into the other one. And remember that when we get into the other side, it may feel a little different. We hold our tensions very differently from one side to the next. So you may have to adjust your props. So whenever you're ready, start with the other leg. So right leg stays out. Come up onto the knees. Left toes behind you. You're pulling the skin back behind the knee so you can sit down comfortably to the inside edge of the heel. And slowly at your own pace start to make your way back as much as you can. Remember, the knee joint should always feel safe in this pose. Lower back as well. The proper support is important. Whatever kind of props you have at home, I always recommend a couple of blocks, a bolster is handy, some of these folding chairs. But you can get creative with the props, sofa cushions, pillows, as long as it gives you good support and it's not a shaky ground. You can start off with the legs out, just trying to settle into the pose at first, and then whenever you're ready, you can start to play with that right leg, drawing it in slowly, a little bit at a time. By extending the hands all the way back behind you, reaching into the fingers, you'll connect quadricep all the way into the fingers. And the idea with the yin practice is that we're staying relatively still in the poses. We want to avoid too much fidgeting with our hands or with our gaze, because all of that translates into the mind moving around. So as much as you can, you remain relatively still, with the exception of the odd adjustment every once in a while to either go deeper a little bit into the pose, or maybe to hit a different angle, or maybe you're just not in the right spot. But if you're feeling comfortable right now, find a way to, play around, explore the pose a little bit, and find some discomfort, and learn to be comfortable with it. Challenging our ego is the only way to grow. Any chance you get, step out of that comfort zone, do something differently. Take yourself somewhere different. So you don't have to start off with the most intense part of the pose. You can gradually intensify it as you go along. Deep breathing into whatever you're feeling. It's not as bad as we make it out to be. It's our mind that makes it difficult. Five more deep breaths. Relax a little bit more with every exhale. Let go of anything you're holding on to there. And then slowly, with the help of the hands and elbows, come up to a seated position. Slowly extend the leg out in front. And when you're ready, just lay back into Shavasana. Allow the body to settle down on its own. Let it sink down into the mat. Take a breather here. Just a few more breaths here. Everything settling down. And slowly, we're going to be coming into our supported bridge pose. So bring the knees into the chest. Slowly roll over to the right side, come up to seated. Bring the block in closer towards you so it's accessible to the side of your hip. Lay back down onto your spine. Heels coming in towards your hips as if you're coming into the bridge pose, feet about hip width apart. Lift the hips up and place the block underneath the sacrum, which is the little triangular shaped bone in between your hip bones, and you want to place it closer to the tailbone end of the sacrum. Once the block feels stable, you rest all of your body weight onto the block, so that you're resting completely and supported, thighs rolling slightly in towards each other. This will open up the hip bones and back and allow the lower spine to release. And you just lay there, shoulders resting on the mat, deep breaths into the belly. This is not so much a stretch for the front of the body, but more of a release for the lower spine. If you're lucky, as you come into it, you even feel a few pops as you're letting go. Now you can hold the pose in this position, or if you're a little more comfortable, you can bring the knees up, straight up and towards the ceiling, so that the weight of your legs are pressing down a little bit more. As long as you feel stable. Knees up, you can relax the feet. We got 30 seconds left in the pose. Deep inhalations. And if your legs are up in the air, start to bring them back down slowly. And once they're back down, press into the feet, lift the hips up off the block. Take the block out to the side and roll gently from the top of your spine down to the bottom. Hug the knees in lightly without lifting the tailbone up too much, and start rocking gently side to side, or little circular motions with the lower back. And then when you're ready, you roll over to the right side, come up to seated with the help of the left hand, getting ready for the supported fish pose, which is a great release for the upper shoulders, neck, and traps. So legs extended out. And we are going to use the block, or maybe even a yoga mat if you want a slightly easier option. So laying back down along the center of the block, or a rolled up yoga mat or blanket. Anything that lifts the heart up and drops the shoulders back. Now you want to support thoracic spine, so mid-spine, and you want to make sure that the head goes all the way back. If the head cannot rest comfortably, place another block or pillow underneath the head to support it. Or by taking the hands back, you'll allow the head to come back a little bit more, plus you'll open up this line over here. Shoulders resting back, chest is lifted. Now take some deep breaths. And let those shoulders sink down a little bit more every time. This is a great pose to help counter slouching. And most of us tend to slouch even to some degree, either with our head or with our shoulders. And even a slight tilt forward can cause a lot of tension in the shoulders and neck. So this is a great pose to help release those muscles and help counter that slouching so that you stand a little bit taller. It's a very passive back bend. Teaches us how to breathe deeply in our back bends. If you spend lots of time maybe sitting at a desk at a computer, or in any position where you're folding forward for long periods of time, this is a great counter, even if you just did it 5 minutes every day. Expand those lungs here. Deep breaths. At any point, if you feel like you have to come out ahead of time, use the hands interlaced behind your head to help the head up first before you try to come off the block. We got 5 more breaths here now. So to come out of the pose, interlace the fingers behind the head, help the head up off the mat, and then use abdominals and your elbows to come off the block slowly. Take the prop out to the side. Just roll the shoulders out. Take the hands back as we get ready for our next pose. This next pose focuses on the shoulder girdle. It's a great complement to the supported fish pose, and for most of us who carry a lot of tension up there, it's one of the best ways to get into it. For this pose, you'll need 1 block and 1 chair. So you place the chair on the mat, block in hand, elbows about shoulder length on the chair, so what you want to do in this pose is have the shoulders rotating out as much as you can, as if you're trying to hide the armpits with your shoulder blades, so the space between them is nice and open, and this area is just sinking right down between the gate of the shoulders. If you're struggling with shoulder flexibility, this pose is great to help you get into poses like the wheel pose or forearm stand, and it's really good to open up the lats. Just enjoy whatever you're feeling here. Use the breath to stay in the pose. Hips draw right back to lengthen, chest sinking right through. Just a few more breaths. And then slowly lift the heart up and eventually let the elbows come back down. And feel the benefits. So for the next pose now, a good counter for all of those, the front line stretches, is the west stretch, which stretches the entire back line of the body. So feet out in front as if they're flat against a wall. Take the flesh out from underneath the sits bones so that they're grounded. And then whenever you're ready, push out into the 4 corners of the feet lightly. Inhale, reach up with the hands, lengthen the front. Exhale, reach out as much as you can, folding forward. Maybe helping the toes in with the hands. Maybe keeping the hands in a little bit closer if you need to. Round back is what we're looking for. Chin tucked down, shoulders rounding down with the spine. option here is to, if you find it hard enough even just to sit up tall and your pelvic bowl tilts back, is to lift yourself up onto a block or a nice comfortable bolster so that both sits bones are grounded, allowing the pelvic bowl to tilt forward a little bit more. If you do decide to sit up on a block, make sure that the knees do not hyperextend. So if you're feeling a stretch right behind the knees, place a little prop underneath the knees so that it doesn't bend them too much, but it gives it that light support. Round back. Deep breaths, allowing the body to sink and let go. So we're not trying to pull or push with our hands. We don't want to restrict the pose. We just want time and gravity and breath to bring us closer to the mat. Whenever our attention goes elsewhere, we just come right back into the body and breath. No judgments or criticisms about it. Just letting go of whatever has distracted us and coming right back here, because where we place our attention is a choice. We can choose at any time where we place it. But how long we keep it there is a different story. And this practice is great training so that you can focus your attention into one place for a little bit longer. So rather than just always following your thoughts from one place to the next, you can focus your attention where you want to. Now in this pose, sometimes the back of the neck may start to get a little sore, so by keeping the spine rounding down, maybe lifting the head up and just stretching it out in a few directions, or maybe placing a block or a prop of some sort underneath the forehead so that the shoulders and neck release a little bit more. Five more deep breaths here. Make them count, expanding belly, rib cage, and chest. And then slowly, with the help of the hands, start to make your way up, rolling one vertebrae up at a time. And if you have any props underneath you, move them out to the side, and then slowly make your way back onto your mat with the help of the hands. Allow the shoulders just to drop back into the mat and feel that relief as they sink down. After holding that position forward for a long time, it's nice to just let them go. And then from here, we'll be coming into our laying spinal twist in a moment, before we finish off with our final relaxation. So taking the hands out to the side, 90 degrees, bringing the heels in so that you can shift your hips over to the right side of the mat about 2 or 3 inches, knees back up into a chair pose. Right knee crossing over left thigh. Slowly as you exhale, let the knees fall over to the left side, gazing over the right shoulder. Allow the legs to relax. Allow them to sink down completely. Option to place a prop underneath the legs to help support if you find that you cannot relax into it. Or maybe just keeping the knees side by side. Keep breathing deeply into the belly here. It's not time to drift away yet. The deeper the inhale is, the more the body is willing to release on the exhale. You have options as well in the laying spinal twist. Taking the right arm up to a 45-degree angle, palm facing up, can focus on the length of the forearm, bicep, shoulder, chest. This is often a line that gets tight from all the slouching that we do forward. It's a nice pose to get the lower back, SI joint, maybe the outside of the leg as well. You can even play with your gaze. If you take the hand up, moving your gaze over towards the left side sometimes works on the chest a little bit more. Five more deep breaths here. Belly expanding, body is sinking with the exhale. We're going to take our time coming back up to the center position now. Knees slowly coming back up. Gently unfolding the legs and resting in the center position. Feet flat on the floor, knees bent, and just let the lower back settle down for a moment before we hit the other side. Deep breaths into whatever you're feeling here as it settles down. How long you wait between the poses is up to you. You can take long breaks or shorter ones. We're going to start making our way into the other side now, so we shift our hips over to the left side of the mat about 2 or 3 inches, knees up into a chair position. Left knee over right thigh, knees falling towards the right side slowly, gazing over the left shoulder. Deep inhalations into the belly, always coming back into the breath. The breath is a great tool that we have, that we take wherever we go. So wherever you have it, it's with you. And whenever you need to, you can use it to bring yourself back here, back into the moment. So whenever you've gone off somewhere into your future, worried about something that hasn't happened yet, or whenever you're in your past feeling guilty or shameful about something that happened probably a long time ago, you can use that tool, that breath, to bring yourself right back here. Try and let go of any tensions you're still hanging on to here. Maybe taking the left hand up to 45 degrees for the last little while of the pose, or anywhere around that angle. Even playing with different movements of the wrist can affect different lines down that side of the body. Be a scientist and explore, experiment. It's your body. You have the greatest potential of getting to know it more than anybody else. You have first experience with it. You have more potential to get to know your body more than anyone else. You have first experience with it. We have 5 more deep breaths to go here. Slowly take your time coming back up. You're going to feel it in the lower back perhaps. Once you make it back to the center position, hug the knees in. Tailbone lifting, forehead between the knees. Take 5 deep breaths here. Feel the belly pushing out into the thighs. Feel the stretch in the lower back, rounding the shoulders forward. Take one more deep inhalation, and then exhale, head back down slowly, legs extend out. Separate the feet a little bit wider than the hips, toes fall open to the side, hands away from your body, separating the shoulder blades, lengthening the back of the neck, and allowing the body to relax and settle down completely so that no more effort is required to hold it up. No more effort required to move the breath around. It's coming to its natural, soundless, effortless rhythm. And any thoughts that you're attaching yourself to in the mind, just let them come and go freely, as if you're watching them from far away as you sink down into relaxation. Namaste.